Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle Podcast with Jim and Aram. Do not forget to get your ticket for the Real Coaches Summit 2025. 2025, that's crazy. If you're a full-time coach, especially if you're a part-time coach, you will not be in the minority. Get your ticket. If you are just a fan of fitness and being around people that are passionate about this stuff, come on out to Las Vegas this April. Get your tickets. RealCoachesSummit2023.com. Aram was not thinking when he made that website, and
Nope.
Fortunately, it was more successful than just 1 year with the response that people gave. So today we have our guest Ian Bowen. I know nothing about, but already from the one sentence that Aram told me, I'm excited to hear Ian's story. So I'll let Aram go from here if he has anything to say before we introduce him.
I don't even want to say anything because it doesn't sound as good coming from me as it does from Ian, because he's the one who lived it, breathed it, had to deal with it, not me. So I'll just tell you how I got connected to him. I got connected to Ian through Joe, who I got connected through Matt Park from TRM.
Who's Joe? You're just saying the name Joe.
How the hell do you pronounce Joe's last name? Marcu. Yeah.
It's
so
yeah.
Joe is a sales guru and a coach, and got connected to Ian through him. I met Joe through TRM, through Matt Park. So by divine intervention, as always, the networking goes round and around, and here we are. But Ian's got an awesome fucking story. Just a very, very tough case that he had to live through, and it just shows the level of human resilience and fortitude that I think all of us will sometimes forget that we have. And I think by listening to stories like his, it inspires us to know that everybody's heart is their hard, but we're very, very capable of overcoming some really nasty obstacles, and that's what his was. So I'll let him take it away.
All right. Wow.
No pressure. Just tell us about your life. No questions. What do you do? What's your, because that's the standard. What do you do for a living? What are you passionate about?
So I've been in the fitness industry for about 13 years now. My wife and I, we own a Fit Body Boot Camp, which is a franchise boot camp business.
Bedros? Is that Bedros?
Correct. Yeah, he is the president now, but not really that involved. Bryce Henson is the CEO now, and so we own that business. And then last year we launched our Positive Persistence business, which is based around motivational speaking and life coaching. So we've got that going on as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that keeps us busy, along with 5 boys, 6 kids in total, ranging from 7 to, or actually 8 now, to 22. So my wife and I were a blended family, so this is our second marriages, and so we're rarely bored. Yeah,
that's wild. Aram has no kids. He will stay that way. If you did not know, he's very passionate about not having them, and I support his decision.
Very passionate. I love practicing. I just don't love producing.
Practicing.
Yeah, Aram did share that with me, that he has 0 kids.
Yeah. I have 2 dogs. I have 2 dogs. That counts. I have to take care of some human life. Some life. It's just not human.
Yeah.
Counts, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, to treat dogs better than humans anyway, for the most part.
The way that I think about it is my clients are my children.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is condescending.
That's a great
not condescending. Listen, who doesn't love most people love their kids like unconditionally. I love all my children. The same way that Jesus loved his.
I have such mixed feelings right now. I don't know how to.
I mean, if you want to
I'm going to take time on to process it. I'll get back to you.
If you want to call me a Messiah, you certainly can.
Messiah.
Totally fine.
So you are like Jesus, is what you're saying?
Very, very close. Very close.
He was from Russia, I think. Jesus.
He was from, just further south, though.
Yeah.
Just a little further south. Just slightly.
This will happen. This will happen.
This
will happen a few times, Ian.
No, but I want Ian
mainly my fault.
I want Ian to immediately go into his story of struggle, because it's not just fitness that he's good at. He overcame some crazy shit. So tell us about that crazy shit.
All right. Well, crazy shit started probably, or actually did start in 2009. Little backstory: been an athlete all my life. At that point, I was in my first marriage. I had a 6-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son. I was working in the beverage industry as a delivery department manager. And so some of my responsibilities in that job were going out on the trucks with my supervisors, with my drivers, and chucking beer with them into our accounts and building a relationship with our customers. That being said, um, our our company was a family-owned company, awesome people. They really believed in giving back to the community. So we were all involved in a Habitat for Humanity. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that
Mm-hmm.
program. Habitat for Humanity program, and where a bunch of us went out and cleared basically this field, this brush, one day for Habitat
In
for
America?
in America. Yes.
I just always think overseas a lot
No,
of times when I think,
this
so I was
was
just
right
curious.
here in good old Indiana, which is where I live. So
Okay.
really in the heart of the country. So the very next day, I started to have some tingling sensations in my right leg. Didn't think much of it. Thought I might have gotten into some poison ivy or something while we are clearing that brush. So just let it ride. A couple days later, hadn't gone away. As a fact, it had spread. That tingling sensation, anyway, had spread from my right leg to my left leg and started traveling down to my feet. Still at this point, I do what most guys do and ignore it and hope it goes away.
Is there anything visible on you?
No, and
Okay.
that was the strange part, right? There was no rash.
Yeah.
There was this tingling, kind of like pins and needles, like when your foot or your
Yeah.
falls asleep, that kind of thing.
Just the legs, no hips, groin, just the legs.
Just the legs, thighs, predominantly, and then it started to travel down to my feet. A week goes by, that tingling sensation is still there. I finally go to the doctor to get it checked out. By this time now, I also have pain underneath both of my pecs. And
My heart is racing right
I'm
now.
32, so I'm 32 years old at this point. And as I mentioned, I've been an athlete all my life. So I was running at this point, started to run, started to do 5Ks. I was strength training a couple of days a week. So I just figured I had pulled a muscle, right, or something like that. So going to the doctor, they figured the same. They said, take some ibuprofen, put some ice on it, and you'll be fine. So, I did that, and that did not change anything. So the tingling sensation was still there. The pain under my chest was still there, which got worse when I would lie down. So I had trouble sleeping. But again, just, toughed it out. Hopefully it would go away. Another week progresses. I go back to the doctor because the symptoms are not gone. They say, okay, well, let's check you out and give you an MRI to see if we can see something. Give me the MRI. Sure enough, something shows up on my spinal cord. But the results weren't very clear. So they said, you know what, let's have you come back for another MRI, this time with contrast. So that's where they shoot you with the dye. Hit me up with the dye, do the MRI, results come back. You definitely have something going on your spinal cord. It looks like there's something actually on your spinal cord. My doctor, my family doctor, had been my doctor for years and knows that I was in really good shape. And these symptoms that came out of the blue were probably telltale signs of something else. So she made the call. She's like, look, we're not going to mess around with any doctors around here. I'm going to send you to the specialist up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So she sends me up there, and they go through all of their tests. Long story short, they run a gambit of tests, everything from urine to blood to spinal tap to taking a biopsy of the inside of my eyelid. And all the tests that they run come back inconclusive. So at this point, I've got the tingling sensations that now go from my hips all the way down to my feet. I've got the chest pain that is increasing. And now there's another symptom that has started where I'm starting to lose mobility. So sitting at my desk at work, if I were to get up to go to the bathroom, let's say, I would stand up, and for about 60 seconds, I wouldn't be able to actually take a step. Almost like the message from my brain to my muscles and back was getting blocked or was garbled, or there just wasn't communication there for a split second. So now I'm getting a little freaked out, as you can imagine. Like, what is going on
Yeah,
with,
this isn't even me, and I'm freaked out.
right?
Yeah.
So my neurologist and the neurosurgeon that had my case up at the Mayo Clinic said all of our tests came back inconclusive. There's one last thing that we can do, because what's actually happening, or what our MRI tells us, is that you don't have something growing on your spinal cord. You have something growing in your spinal cord. And it's one of two things. It's either a tumor, which meaning it could be cancer, or it's this disease called neurosarcoidosis, which is a mouthful. And so there I am at, 32 years old, two small kids, thinking to myself, so you're telling me I either have cancer or this disease I've never heard of. And they said, look, what we need to do is, this is our last resort. We have to go in and we have to take a biopsy of this lesion that's growing in your spinal cord so we can figure out what course of action to take. Okay. They said, but we need to be very clear. This could paralyze you for the rest of your life. This is a very risky surgery. As you guys can imagine, there isn't any spare space, if you will, on the spinal cord. Like, every millimeter is used for something in your body. So they made that very clear. Like, you could be paralyzed for the rest of your life. However, we need to know how to diagnose you. So being 32 and being naive and not really thinking about the implications of what could happen or the ramifications of doing the surgery, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, yes, I'm at the Mayo Clinic. I'm with the specialist. Let's do the surgery. You guys figure it out. Patch me up and I can heal like it's a broken bone or something. So I sign off on the surgery. Let's go. Do the surgery. Wake up in my recovery room. Good news, Mr. Bowen. It's not cancer. It's kind of what we thought it was. It's neurosarcoidosis, which isn't curable, but is treatable. That's okay. Awesome. But the worst possible outcome had actually happened. From the chest down, I was gone. 75% of my body was rendered useless. I was paralyzed. So there I lay in that hospital bed thinking, what's next? And a day or so goes by, and my neurosurgeon and my neurologist come in, kind of check on me to see how things are going, and are kind of laying out my future, basically giving me their prognosis of what's going to happen. And as they come in, a nurse comes in with them and has a push pin in her hand, and she's basically poking me on my toes, on my shins, on my thighs, on my stomach. And every time asking me, can you feel this? Can you feel this? Can you feel this? Nope. Can't feel anything. Can't move anything. I've got no sensation, nothing. And the doctors start to tell me, well, we think that you'll be able to walk again, but you're most likely going to need a cane, crutches, or a walker. And I don't know if I just didn't want to hear what they had to say or was still kind of in shock, but I asked them, am I ever going to be able to run again? Because in my mind, I've got a 5K in a couple months that I was training for. And they look at me and they must have thought I was nuts, because they must have thought, like, I just told you that you're probably not going to walk again unassisted, and you're asking me, are you going to run? Well, their answer was no. That's not going to happen. And for me, in that moment, I think all of the adversity that I had faced throughout my life up to that point, and all of the run-ins that I had with my father, which is a whole other story, a lot of butting heads there, I definitely had an adversarial reaction to authority.
I want to fucking run.
When they told me, you're going to be stuck with some sort of durable medical equipment for the rest of your life, and you're not going to be able to run again, I didn't go the route of, wow, that sucks. That's damaging. That's the rest of my life is going to be like that. It was like, okay, watch me. When do we start physical therapy? And the next day we started PT, and the rehab journey kind of goes on from there. But I was in the hospital for about almost 4 weeks. And I went from having to be craned literally out of my bed, put into a wheelchair, to having to learn how to do everything. Like at that point, like the day after surgery, I couldn't sit up in bed because, remember, chest down, done. So it was a long, hard road back. But I can say, and this is leaving out a lot of details, you're kind of skipping forward. 13 years later, I ran my first marathon.
Holy shit.
So it just goes to show, as Aram pointed out, that we all have our shit. We all have our challenges. We all have the adversity that lays before us, but we also all have the ability to do amazing things, unthinkable things. And it all starts with, for me at least, it was not allowing someone else's thought of what my capabilities were become my reality. Because I could have easily had the white coat syndrome or whatever it is, where the doctor's always right because they're the experts. And for years, it took me a long time to get over the fact, 'cause I was pissed for years. Like, why the hell would they tell me that? Why would they put that in my mind that I couldn't do something or I wasn't going to be able to? And I finally came to realize that doctors only know what they know.
Yeah, and plus you figure the average person probably is not having that mindset, and they don't want to give you a false hope.
Exactly. And
Kind of
doctors
thing.
only know what their outcomes from their other patients were. Yes, that's the other part of that. So it took me a long time to come to grips with that. And then to come full circle with my doctors, I ran my second marathon last year, and it was in Rochester, Minnesota, where Mayo Clinic was. And my whole care team, my nurses, my physical therapists, my doctors, my surgeons were there to surprise me at the finish line.
That's awesome.
Which it was awesome. It was really cool. But as I go to hug my surgeon, I tell him, I say, I don't know if I want to hug you or punch you in the face. Because one, like if I were somebody else, potentially, you totally could have dismantled any hope for me to make any kind of recovery, at least 100% recovery, which was my goal right off the bat. But at the same time, you also fueled my fire. So it was almost like, I want to punch you in the face, but I also want to say thanks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it's interesting, like if being contrarian from your experience with your father, that was probably the best thing that they could have said. Where it'd be interesting, and obviously we can't relive it, if you were told, yeah, you'll be able to walk again, you'll be able to run. How frustrated would you have been with how slow the process is? How come I can't walk yet? How come I can't do this yet? Like it's so wild to think how it could have, what it could have been. So it's the perfect scenario for you. What happened?
In a lot of ways, yes. But I will tell you, Jim, that frustration came.
Yeah.
You know, it was probably about a year and a half of going through some pretty rigorous physical therapy, going from a walker to crutches to 2 canes to 1 cane to finally doing the unthinkable and walking unassisted. There were many days where it was like, this shit is not happening fast enough.
Tell us about times. Were there times where you're like, it's not happening? Period. I've been fooling myself.
No.
Never.
No. There was one option, Jim, from day one, and that was I either make it or I make it. That was it. There was no going back. I had 2 little kids. I was not going to be relegated to a wheelchair. Nothing wrong with that for those of us who are, but that was not going to be my reality. That was not going to be my situation. That was not the identity I had for myself. So there was never that this isn't going to happen.
Ian, can you talk about some of those I mean, PT is probably one of those wildly valuable things when you have a good physical therapy team. And it's also, I mean, as I've seen people in critical care, I've seen people have to rehab their way out of some shit. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just don't lean into the process, and they're the ones who always have the poor outcomes, and they're the ones who bring the statistics down.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had plenty of days where you wanted to fucking just sit in that wheelchair and be like, fuck it, this sucks. I don't even want to do this anymore. How did you push, like, what were some of the things that were going on in your head on some of those harder days where you were just grinding through it to get through it?
Well, first off, I didn't have much time to sit in my wheelchair and cry about it. When I got home, luckily for me, my family doctor hooked me up with a friend of hers who was a physical therapist. Day one, I go in my wheelchair for her eval to check me out. She does an eval. She's like, okay, yep, I think I can work with you. She says, we come back tomorrow, but when you do, don't bring your wheelchair.
Damn, that's a nice PT.
Right? And right then and there, I knew I had found the person that I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she pushed me. And her name is Dolly, fat key, love her to pieces. She'll probably kill me if she hears me say this, but she was probably 5 foot, maybe, and maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. But man, she was a ball buster, man. And there were those days where I did come in feeling defeated. And we had, of course, working 5 days a week with her for months, we established a pretty thick rapport. So she knew when I wasn't feeling it. But being the awesome PT that she was and person that she was, she let me sit in it for a minute. She let me realize or sit in those feelings. And then she would just look at me and say, are you done now? Because we've got work to do.
So you're right? Like answering the questions that I have. It was awesome.
Yeah. And she, by doing that, she allowed me to, she didn't just gloss over those feelings and just kind of, shove smoke up my ass and say, hey, everything's good. Let's get to work. It was like, okay, let's acknowledge those feelings for a second. But now they're done because they're not doing you any good anymore. Let's get to work. So having somebody like that in your corner that will acknowledge you and then also push you was key for me.
Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest things about care when somebody's going through a tough time is the ability to acknowledge their situation, to validate them that they are in a position that is difficult. But then you have choices to make like everybody else does. And it can either be the choice of this is my situation and I'm not gonna look around for solutions or open doors. Or this is my situation. I'm going to use everything at my disposal to be able to break through this situation. And I think that's really what separates the people who succeed at anything versus the ones who have this very pessimistic or very woe is me view about the world. And it's like the world is doing this to me.
Yeah.
And it can I can listen not that pales in comparison to your issue. When I tore my Achilles, like there was days where I'm like, not that I was a fucking athlete before to begin with, anything of noteworthy, but at least I had some ability to move in that way. And I'm like, I'm never going to be right again. Like I'm too far gone. I'm too old. This is not going to recover the way I wanted to. Getting in and out of the shower with assistance was such a reduction of your quality of life that there would be times where I'd be sitting on the toilet seat, like crying before I had to get into the shower. And every little thing is just that much harder. And I think that's the problem. So I want you to talk about, obviously you work with general population people on their fitness, on their nutrition, trying to get them into a better lifestyle. And we as coaches are met with resistance and obstacles or objections from our clients on an hour-to-hour basis of what they can't do.
Yeah.
It's got to be fucking... I don't know how you don't rip whatever little hair you have left on your head out of your head when you hear these things.
First of all, he has a full head of hair.
Well, he's got
it's just shaved out. I mean, look, I can see the follicles from here. It's way more impressive than mine, I feel like.
If you
those arches, the receding,
dude, you and me both. We got mid 40s. You start growing stuff on your head.
Yeah.
I go to the dermatologist. He goes, yeah, that's just age spot. You start growing shit on your head.
Yeah, that's called syphilis, Jim. That's all right. I feel
you, Jim.
It might be. Listen, we can't. Aram's only 40. He doesn't know the struggle.
I don't get it. But there's times where even me, I try to lead with as much empathy as I can, but there's only so much of it you can hand out. And there's only so many objections and excuses you can hear before it makes you want to just fucking jump out of your own skin. So how are you able to have that type of patience with people going through what you've gone through, persevering unimaginable odds to then still listen to like Mrs. Jones, who's telling you that she can't get to the gym twice a week because she doesn't have the time?
As empathy is huge, right? And to go back to the question that you asked before, when I was having those hard times and where progress wasn't happening and I just didn't feel like doing the work, I had to realize that no one's coming to save me. Like, there isn't anybody that's going to do it for me. And unless I do it myself, I'm not going to move myself forward. And I know what's going to happen if I don't. So why don't I find out what happens if I do? Which is the same message that I give to my clients. Like we know what's going to happen if you don't watch what you eat and you don't stay up on your hydration and you don't come in and work out at least 3 times a week. Like, we know what's going to happen. Why don't we find out what happens if you do? And then when we come to the point to where, well, I've been, doing this and doing that, and we know they're not consistent, then it's just simply, well, you don't want it bad enough, do you? Yes, no, you don't. Because if you did, you would be doing everything in your power. You would be unturning every stone, lifting every rock, whatever metaphor you want to use. You'd be doing all the things in your power to get where you want to go. If you wanted it bad enough, you wouldn't let anything stand in your way.
Yeah, I think there's so many lessons in literally the words that you used in your story of there was no other option. That's one thing where somebody, they try maybe a transformation journey process and they're like, that's not me. Like, it is an option to fail, to sit in your feelings and then say, now what? You ready to go? Where people avoid their feelings and then they start reacting to the avoidance of their feelings through overeating, alcohol, food, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Or they sit in their feelings too long and don't go, and now what? Is the action that needs to take place to get what I want to get.
Right.
It's like, these are my feelings. I'm just going to sit in it and continue to eat, drink, whatever. Like, it's funny because the action ends up being the same for the people avoiding their feelings or sitting in their feelings too long.
Yes.
And you need to acknowledge the feelings, but then you need to go, now what? What are we going to do now? So I think that there's just that part of your story. There's so many lessons for everybody in every aspect of their life. That's just regular everyday living, not having to go through what you went through. So hopefully people walk away with that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I also want to,
Aram, what you said about your story, about your Achilles, and you made the comparison to like what I had gone through. Your story is your story. And for your clients, for my clients, like, their shit is real because it's their shit.
Right.
I remember while I was in the hospital, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I'd be wheeled around the hospital in my wheelchair. And I remember rolling into
literally
another neurological unit, but this neurological unit was for kids. Mm. And I saw young kids, teenagers, shaved heads, medical patches on because they've had brain surgery. These kids have had some traumatic brain injuries, but they're carrying on like kids. Like, they don't know any different. Now I'm thinking to myself, like, these kids aren't even 16. Some of them aren't even, 10, 11. Like, they haven't lived life yet. They don't know what it's like to drive a car or kiss a girl or kiss a boy or go to a dance or play sports. And I'm thinking to myself, my shit could be a lot worse.
But then how great is that? That's another lesson. Like, approach life like a kid. What's the Bible verse? Only those who get to heaven through the eyes of a child. However that exact phrase is. It's like, we lose that as we get older. We become bitter and we become upset. We become angry and we blame everybody else, where it's like the eyes of a child, like they're just approaching that same situation in such a different way. Yeah, I don't know. We need to kind of connect to our childhood again
Well,
in
and
that way.
what you see a lot too in the coaching industry right now is this very prevalent message of, you know, we can't tell our clients things like you don't want it bad enough, or it's toxic messaging to challenge their lack of time management or their prioritization skills. And I truly believe that that's doing somebody a disservice. I think if you're allowing people to slide more often than you challenge them, all you're really doing is enabling their complacency
Yeah.
and their issues and their obstacles and illuminating those things and making them much more grand than they need to be, as opposed to saying, "Hey, yeah, like I get it. Like let's just take Ian for a second. Like he's running a business. He's got 6 kids. He can use all the same excuses that everybody else uses. I don't have time. I have too many things going on. My kids have sports. I have a business to run. Yet somehow he takes care of his nutrition. He still finds time to work out. Oh, and by the way, he had this thing where he couldn't walk for a little while. So it's like, yeah, I get that your shit is your shit, but you can be in a shitty mood and stand in front of your stove in a shitty mood and make yourself food for the next 2 days. And you could be in a shitty mood on the elliptical. And you could be in a shitty, depressive mood because your husband and you are in a fight while you're at the gym getting something done that's better than nothing, as opposed to just letting these things paralyze you to the point of just no action whatsoever. And that's what drives me absolutely crazy. Is in some of my darkest times is when I leaned into nutrition and fitness the most, because they were the things that I can actually control.
Yeah.
And they were the things that actually contributed positively to my quality of life when my quality of life was otherwise so low. And I just don't understand why people put this stuff down like it's luggage and let it sit there and collect dust until they pick it up when it becomes convenient again.
I think you both know that as humans, I believe that unless we experience some sort of crisis or trauma, whether that be physical, environmental, emotional, that's when we decide, oh, I need to do something about it. Otherwise, we are complacent. We are way too comfortable with being uncomfortable. But oddly enough, that's comforting for us.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But
we've talked about it 1,000 times on here. It's the familiarity.
Yeah,
Comfort is just familiarity of the brain. So if you're familiar with chaos, that's comfort for you. That's why people get stuck in the cycle of being involved in chaotic relationships or all that kind of stuff. What do you think is either maybe a tipping point or a talking point or something that maybe people are missing when it comes to they haven't had that traumatic event that causes them to take action and they stay in that, floating zone, for lack of a better term, of like not fully taking action to get there? What do you think is the thing that's holding them back or whatever? Anything on that topic?
Jim, I wish I had the answer.
Give us the answer, Ian.
Wish I did. I wish I knew what the thing was that could be the catalyst for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, it's different for everybody, but it comes to it. Yeah, it comes to that point, but that point's different for everyone to where it's the oh shit moment.
Do you think people just don't believe? I just feel like so many people, they just can't even envision that end result. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that it will work for them.
Yes. I think belief, lack of belief is a huge part of it, which is something that we work on at the gym, something that I work on with my clients, both my personal training clients and my coaching clients. It's about fixing that or addressing that limiting belief.
What are some things do you do to help address that?
Well, first of all, at the gym, we talk about, we address mindset all the time, but we also say, look, when you step into this space, there are 5 words that are not allowed here. And that is try, can't, won't, don't, and sorry, because those are all powerless words that lead to negativity. So it's about watching what you say, because there's a very small distance between your mouth and your ears, right? And what you say goes right back into here, and it gets cataloged. It stays with you. It doesn't leave. So we have to start watching what we say about ourselves, and then start thinking positively about what we can do, what we can achieve. Because you're right, so many people are in that lack of self-belief season, phase, mindset, whatever you want to call it. But when they start their day like that, you're screwed for the rest of the day.
Yeah. I think Joe Dispenza even talks about not using the words or the phrase "I hope," because I hope shows lack.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I hope this,
Yes.
you know, so it's already shows that you don't believe it's going to happen, kind
Correct.
of a thing. So even phrases like that. So you can add a sixth word, I hope, to it.
I kind of liken that to
Yeah.
try.
Hope and try
is
are
the
part
next best excuse of why it didn't work.
Yeah.
I tried.
I mean, I tell my clients constantly, there's really only two words you need to focus on: I do or I don't.
I will.
Not will, because will assumes that you're going to try to do something and you might not do it. It's either I did it or I didn't do it. So if there's a check-in form that comes in and I have a very clear question, did you meal prep? And then I'll get like a half a paragraph novel of why it didn't happen. I'm like, no, I don't need the workaround. I don't need the explanation.
Now you need to change. You need to change your check-in form to a drop-down menu of yes or no. You're giving yourself and your clients way too much work. Drop-down menu or a checkbox, yes or no, and then they're like, "But I want to explain it." You don't have any option to explain it.
I don't. Yeah,
it's yes or no.
And here's the thing: is as human beings, we can rationalize our inaction constantly. Like most of us are emotionally intelligent enough to believe our own bullshit. And the longer we speak whatever these narratives are in our head, the more powerful they become. Like, I can't do this becomes I really can't do it, because that's what it is. Like, I've convinced myself I can't do it. As opposed to, I'd rather fuck this up 75 times in a row, and on the 76th try, it's going to actually work, because I continue to do it as imperfectly as I possibly can, but it's still doing it. It's still making the effort. It's still having the intention to show up and do it every single day under whatever circumstances are present, whether they're ideal, they're neutral, or they're not. Because the reality is most of the time, things are not going to be convenient. Your schedule is not going to have this unbelievable amount of green grass in front of you to where it's like, oh, you get to just work out for 5 hours a day every day. Like, whose life is like that? Like, unless you're a trust fund baby or you're a fucking teenager, as an adult, like, you're not going to get 8 hours of sleep unless you go to bed at 7, which is impossible with kids. Good luck.
7.
You're not going to.
These people waking up 3 a.m.
You don't
do the math. What is happening?
But I'm saying,
well, if you do want to be an entrepreneur, you have to start your morning routine at 3 a.m. with listening to audiobooks on double speed while on the treadmill, saying positive affirmations to you.
Right.
You know, you're waking up at 3 a.m. if you've got to be on and training clients at 5 a.m. So
listen, there's times for that, and like, we're not saying this because I think sometimes people will listen to these messages and be like, well, you guys just don't get it. And it's like, no, I do get it. Like, I understand that time can certainly be a commodity that's hard to find and hard to make. But there's so much evidence that it's possible, and that's what I look for. I don't know about you guys, but I want to see the people that won. Don't give me the fucking laundry list of people who lost. I don't need to see that, because losers don't leave evidence of success. Losers leave evidence of loss, and they bitch about it. But winners leave evidence and clues of success and how they did it. And all you have to do is ask one winner who's got the same circumstances as you. Like, if you have 4 kids, ask somebody with 6 kids how they meal prep. If you've had a 50-hour-a-week job, ask the guy who's got a 70-hour-a-week job how he's able to go to the gym. And then you'll find out exactly why you're not doing what you have to do.
Well, I think, too, that with when it comes to self-limiting beliefs, this is something I work on with the group that I do. Find the evidence in your own life. So it's easy, like, we can point out the evidence in other people's lives, and the person who's in the victim mindset is, yeah, but find the evidence in your own life. Every person who's been through this cycle of trying to improve physique, we're talking about that kind of stuff, improve that, they've meal prepped. They've done it for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. But then they got tired of it. Find the evidence of I lost all this weight, but then I gained it back. So you have evidence that you can lose the weight. So people with self-limiting beliefs, they have to look and understand and find evidence in their own life of all of their self-limiting beliefs, and every single person has evidence that will shatter their self-limiting beliefs if they pay attention to it.
Absolutely.
And that's what people aren't doing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's something that is essential in what I work with my clients as well, is helping them remember that they've been in this situation before. It may have been a different scenario. It may have been a different season of life, but you've been here before. You've been in this situation where you are backed up against the wall, or you feel you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, or you're in that spot where you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to succeed. At some point in your life before, you've been here.
Yeah.
And you made it. So look back, find that, because you can do it again.
It's tough. Like you said before, their back's not up against the wall. They just got a little concerned with how they looked and how people were perceiving them.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality.
The tough part.
Is like there's a lot of repercussions for not showing up to work. There's a lot of repercussions for not being a good parent. But there's no real immediate damaging repercussions for not taking care of yourself. It's a very slow
gas.
Yeah, I mean, it's like digestive discomfort, maybe some like loss of self-satisfaction, maybe some poor
bloat.
sleep. But it's just it's nothing like there's no alarm bell that goes off. Like if you fuck up at work, you're getting fired, you lose your income, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, you're a shitty parent, you start having backlash from your kids, or you start having a soiled relationship.
But at the same time, even that analogy at work, it's like you showed up late. You showed up late. You showed up late. There was no consequence until there was the consequence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing with this. It's like, I'm choosing this. There's no real consequence. So all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I got hypertension. I got high cholesterol. My body fat's this percentage. I didn't even see this coming until all of a sudden it's there. But to your point, it's not like, oh, you're going to die next week unless you fix it today. You know, It's still this slow, not immediate thing until they find out something that to them is immediate. Because some people will hear something and be like, that's not immediate. Other people will be like, oh, my cholesterol is this. And that's this alarm bell for them.
Yeah.
You know, some people, it takes the stroke or the heart attack to be the alarm bell. Some people, it just takes some results from a blood work to be their alarm bell. Just like everybody has their different heart, everybody has their different alarm bell. But yes, I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
Well, no,
it's
what I want to ask Ian about that point is that we understand that motivation is fleeting. We know that we can't bank on motivation. It's not something that we just have finite or infinite amounts of.
Yeah.
But when you're tapping into more of the mindset work with your clients and trying to extract their standards, their values, their deeper whys for why the hell they're doing this in the first place, because we know that vanity is just not a strong enough anchor point for most of us. Like we can let ourselves slide a little bit. Like, you know, if we don't have abs, big fucking deal. If our bicep vein isn't popping out, who gives a shit? But like, how are you actually able to work with your clients to pull out what it is that keeps them in the game so that they can tap into that on their hardest days?
Yeah, you got to dig deep into that individual and really tap into the identity of that person or the person that they want to become. And it goes beyond why, because everybody has their why, right? But it's really about digging into that purpose. Like, what is the purpose behind the actions that you want to take to be able to achieve what you want to achieve? And setting, and you use the word standard. What standard are you going to set for yourself in terms of what your expectations are? And then work backwards from there. So if your expectations are to look a certain way, weigh a certain way, or if it's a business goal or relationship goal, okay, let's set the standard then of the work that we're going to need to put in to get you there. And then that's what you need to live up to every day. Like that's the one option. Either I make it or I make it. I either live up to the standard every day to get to where I want to go, or I don't. Like you said, it's either yes or no. Like, did you do it or did you not? And we already know what'll happen if you don't. So why don't we find out what happens if you do?
I forget what band it was. It was a 90s rock grunge band, whatever. I watched some documentary on them and they were talking about, like, my dad said, like, what's your plan B? Because there is no plan B. And that was their whole message, was like, if you want to make it in the music industry, you can't have a plan B.
Well, I think
You're going to make it or you're going to make it.
That might be the Nickelback documentary when they were asking.
It
Chad
was not
Kroeger.
the Nickelback documentary. Fantastic documentary. Became a whole new fan of them, but it was not that. It was an old one, like VH1 Behind the Music back in the day. Like I want to say like Chili Peppers, or I don't even know who it was, but yeah, Nickelback. Ian, how do you feel?
Wow, that you're taking it back. That might be before Aram's time, Jim. I mean,
it's before. I'll be 46 in a couple of days. How old are you? 47, 46, 47? Fuck, you fucking look fantastic.
He looks way better than you do.
He looks way better than you do. He could pull off mid-30s. Come on.
Man, you're making me blush over here, Jim.
Good. You're making me blush just looking at you with that skin all smooth. Anyway, yeah. It was going back to a mid-90s thing, but hey, you make it or you make it. There is no plan B. I think it's a great.
Well, and I think we do, like, we certainly need to be practical with our clients because we do have to give them advice that actually works. And, you know, whether it's calorie deficit, whether it's training protocols, whatever, these things are rooted in fact. There's no denying that if you do the thing at some point, unpredictably down the line is going to be an outcome. And it's that ambiguous point from action to result that's the shittiest part for people. So
but it's kind of what he said of like, what are the standards, which goes to like, what are your values? You know, like your standards, your values, your rituals. But most people don't want to take the time to actually figure out what their values are. They just want to say random words: family, health.
Yeah.
They don't want to go to a website. There's a ton of them out there. Figure out what your value and figure that out. Like, what kind of standards do you want to have for your life? And you actually live by those standards versus you live by these ideals when they're convenient for you.
Right.
Which is what most people do. And that's difficult work. It's difficult work to do that. I think that's where most people like, I'm going to do this because they know the external validation they're going to get from looking a certain way.
Yep.
That's their driving force. And then that's so easily gone when life gets difficult, or when a friend goes, you look fine. Why are you trying to lose weight? You look great. Right. You're amazing. You don't have to come party with us. Why are you not being fun? And then you just go along with it because that you're like, well, now I'm getting their validation by showing up to the party. So like you're constantly seeking that. There's so many layers to all that stuff, and I just don't think most people want to confront themselves.
No, you're right. There is a huge lack of integrity in people's standards
or intention, even in what they're doing. They're just going with the flow in a negative way, because there's a super positive way of going with the flow. Like instead of resisting, like, and like what you were saying at the beginning, blaming everybody else. Victim mindset is like you're blaming everybody else. You're just resisting the narrative that maybe somebody else has about you, going with the flow. And then there's going with the flow of letting everybody else sway you and move you. And there's just no intention in what they're doing sometimes. It's just all external validation.
Yeah.
All of us in this room, I mean, I don't care who it is, whether you have achieved some level of success in business, whether you have a good, successful relationship that you're happy with and a good partner, it's work. Every single day you show up to some kind of a job and you have some type of a task to keep going. And without those intentions and without those levels of effort, what's the fucking point of being here? Like, I just don't listen, don't get me wrong. I'll sit in front of Netflix for a few hours here and there, and I'll certainly numb out with food and whatever else every once in a while. But I want to be able to extract as much living as I can with the short amount of time that I have here.
Prior to you doing that work, did you feel that way?
No, it took me 36 years to get to that point.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is like remembering where you were back when you were in finance or whatever. And it's like, that's the tough part, because a lot of people haven't hit that spot where maybe you have, or Ian has, or I have, where it's like, I'm willing to do that internal investigation and figure out my shit. And that's the toughest part, when you've done that. And now you have somebody who's more on the superficial front of what they're trying to do. They know they're not happy. They don't know why. They don't know to investigate it, but they think if they change their body, it'll do something. Yeah. Answer everybody's problems, Ian.
I think what you just said, what you just said is right. But I think if we can lock in on the small wins that we have, or if we can get some small wins, as you guys know, for our clients, and have them focus on that, and then again remember that they can achieve some things, I think that opens up the gate. Because for me, at least, in working with my clients, the most gratifying thing with working with my fitness clients is when they achieve something that they didn't think was possible.
It's the best.
Or when you surprise them and you bring up the fact that, hey, you just did a full push-up. Do you remember 2 months ago when you were doing these on your knees? And they realize, oh shit, I did do that. And you see their whole demeanor change. Yeah. And now they're standing up a little bit taller. And when they leave you that day, they now have this new self-confidence that is permeating throughout everybody they touch for the rest of the day. And it's like that little small win can be so pivotal in somebody as long as they remember it and they continue to stack small wins on top of it. Because what I have found, at least with my own experience, that those small wins through fitness or with just physical achievement, it's like, if I can do that, like I can do anything that I put my mind to. And for me personally, I truly believe that when we have our mind right, our brain energy, talk about Joe Dispenza, and we've got our heart energy, meaning our conviction, when those two things are in alignment, man, you're on fire. You are unstoppable.
It just reminds me of that's the algorithm of life. Everybody wants to complain about their Instagram algorithm. The algorithm is showing you what you engage with, what you share with other people, what videos you watch longer, and then you're going to complain about, I don't know why this shit keeps showing up my feed, because you're paying attention to it. You're engaging with it.
Right.
So if you're noticing everything bad in your life, that's your life algorithm. You're going to notice it. But if you notice all the wins, all those little things, that's just what you start. You dismiss the quote unquote failures. Mm-hmm. And you notice the wins, then all of a sudden that life algorithm starts showing you all the wins. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm all fucking fired up, man.
So true.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, dude, we can listen to podcasts all day. We can listen to books. We can go to seminars. We can go to conferences. And at the end of the day, there's going to be the people that do those things and they have that momentary boost, and then they drop right back down to where they were before and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And then there's the select few that finally decide that I'm going to take all of this information that I've been collecting for all these years and I'm going to put it to work. And I don't know what the fucking outcome is going to be because I don't actually care what the outcome is going to be. I'm just going to do the work quietly, say nothing to anybody, because the more I've said shit in the past, the more I've disappointed other people and myself as well. I'm just going to sit back and I'm just going to do the thing I know I have to do. And at some point, I'm going to come up for air and I'm going to be a different person because I did it. And I think that's really where the work has to get done, is when you're not getting the accolades and when you're not seeing the results and when you're not getting the pats on the back and the affirmation, because that shit's it's not always going to be there. Jim and I have talked about this before on multiple episodes, where you got to do this type of stuff when nobody's clapping for you. And you got to do this type of stuff and be able to do it when your day is blah and you don't feel like doing it. Because like you said, Ian, integrity is the thing that most people are missing. Like, people will say a whole bunch of shit and follow through with almost none of it. And that to me is the most wasted opportunity of being a human being, is that if you're going to say something, if it's going to come out of your mouth, stand by it and own it. Like, I want to be able to be around a bunch of people who do what they say they're going to do. Because we've all been around people that don't do that, and how disappointing and how frustrating is that, not only for us as the pedestrians watching, but it must be even more awful for the person who's constantly saying this stuff and then not following through with it and continually disappointing themselves. And being a fit person or being a healthy person doesn't require you to move mountains. We're not asking you to do 12 hours of cardio. Like, this isn't the David Goggins approach to health and fitness. Like, that's not what we're asking anybody to do. I don't think anybody in this room is asking for our clients to do ridiculous shit where they're breaking their shins and running hundreds of miles a day. We're just asking you to put 3 to 4 meals in your mouth that you've cooked yourself, to be mindful of restaurant food so you're not over consuming and overindulging. We're asking you to work out 3 to 4 times a week. We're asking you to take some steps so that you're more mobile than you are seated. We're asking you to hydrate.
We're asking you to show up for yourself and follow through with the things that you say that you're going to do.
Right.
That's what I want more than anything. That's why I posted my stories the other day. It's like the result you're looking for is you following through with what you say you're going to do. That's the result you're looking for, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Because it's that constant, I say I'm going to do it, and then I don't. That's what weighs on people way more than the weight that's on their body. I keep saying I'm going to do it this time, and I don't. I get 3 days in. I get a week in. You know, one party threw me off. Like that, the goal is to continue showing up for yourself. As far as I'm concerned, that's what everybody's goal is, and the result will be the result.
So, Ian, leave us with this. For all the people, listen, most people...
Don't leave us, Ian. Don't leave us.
Tell folks in your own perspective, how do you get them to do what they're supposed to do, regardless of the circumstances?
I think it's simple, but it's not easy. And you kind of just talked about it a little bit. But it's really about focusing on the work and not the outcome. Yeah. It's amazing what you can achieve when your focus is on what I need to get done just today. One meal at a time, one workout at a time, one day at a time. Like, just keep it in front of you. And you do that on repeat every day. It's amazing the success that you will have when you're not focused on, oh shit, that goal is so far out there. I don't know if I can do that. Well, you know, the old adage holds true. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You got to just focus on the work. Set your standard. Focus on living up to that on a daily basis. Stack those wins.
Yeah. It's like move the dirt, whether you're using a shovel or a spoon.
Yep, just get it done.
Move the dirt.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. I thank you for sharing your story with us. I think our audience will find this very captivating, and hopefully this moves somebody out of their own way and eliminates not eliminates, but at least reduces their limiting beliefs. I wish we had more people and more examples like you out there, but I think unfortunately
we do.
We do.
Stop with your self-limiting beliefs. We have to find them. Ian knows them, and he's going to send them our info.
We are looking for them more and more. It's like that. Remember the show Heroes?
Yes.
Remember how once you found one, you were finding all the other ones, and then all of a sudden everybody had special powers. So hopefully, the more and more we connect, and that's the thing, is that's why I think building community of like-minded individuals is so powerful, because then you surround yourself with it's like you build your own life algorithm. You put yourself in front of the things you want to see and you want to hear that empower you to be better, as opposed to sitting in the same place with the same people that have always brought you down, that have always put this negative cloud over your head. So thank you for being a positive ray of light in what can be a very cloudy world.
Well, thank you guys for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's like we have these people on, and sometimes like, that was awesome. Like, that was such a cool story or thing. And then I'm always so like excited, surprised, and fascinated by how that can continue to happen on repeat, you know? And it's like for you to come on, like, damn, who's going to beat this? This is awesome. So, yeah, man, thank you for sharing it. And the way you shared the story was, I had like chills all over me, man.
Thanks.
So, Ian, I know you haven't listened to an episode of our podcast before because you hate us and have no respect for us. Have you ever listened to a full episode?
Yes, actually.
You know what our final question is?
I don't remember your final question, though.
Wow. Aram, we got another liar. All right. Our final question we ask every person, okay? So that we can compare you to all former guests.
Okay, again, no pressure. All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Have a good one. Bye.